Thank you, Kevin. That's not a good reputation that people are suffering. Thank you, Lavi Singh, for only one comment I'll make from your presentation is I saw you encouraging us to take on some guidelines, and they are all European based. I didn't see any African based. I want to encourage that. Where is Ravi? He's gone. Oh, here. That please pay a little bit more time understanding the African landscape. I know it's quite challenging. We have over 30 plus. Um, let's build the ecosystem even from within Africa. I think globally, we are leading in terms of being more serious in terms of data protection. And it's a challenge. I hope as connected, this can be a resolution that we want to see more capacity building around data protection in the continent, built by the continent, so that we can also see proposals on certification for the continent on data protection about us. We must tell our African story. But thank you, Nandel, very much for the very insightful presentation on cyber security. I think we all agree that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And once we understand that, I now step in to say data protection is one of the tools that you can also prepare your space in terms of making sure that you're actually safe. Quick run in terms of the presentation. We look at the regulatory framework, data protection in Africa, the status of data protection in Kenya. What are the issues? There is a lot of conversation around cross-border transfer, and of course, the challenges and the opportunities that come with it. I mean, if you listen through the conversation around AI, what do we want? We want to make sure that what we are having is digitally transforming. It's also making sure we are looking at issues around socioeconomic development and and of course governance challenges, and even going around the different pitches. Today we had one of young people, and they're using AI for agriculture. They're using AI for solar. We are using AI to be able to transform our space as people in tech. So we must think how then do we, as we transform, how then do we make sure that those spaces are safe and complying? From a regional level, those are some of the regulatory framework that we have. From if you look at the African Union, what has been set up, look at ECOWAS, you look at the Southern Africa, look at East Africa, and also the economic community of East African states. You will see there is also a lot of keenness. And I want to acknowledge there's a lot of work going on, both at East Africa being supported by European Union and also the World Bank, and also Southern Africa. People are beginning to realize the importance of collaboration. It's not good enough to have data protection framework within your country. I often say good data is one of the things that is so fluid that you can't imagine if we all said that I'm retaining my personal data. How will you even be able to trade? Can you walk into an ATM and use a Visa card? Is that possible? Come on, guys. Have we had lunch or we don't? Is it possible to walk into an ATM? No, because is it possible to send an email? No, it's not. So it's one of the spaces we really must think about collaborating the initiatives taking place. We want to see more of this within Africa so that we are able to utilize these 5 billion 1 billion people based in the continent and make sure that we're making the best of. So from an African perspective, I know this is a nightmare. Maybe that's where Kevin is coming from. I mean, it is good that we have over 39 countries out of 55, which in one way or another have data protection law. But from an investor perspective, that is not good. Because somebody was explaining how if you have a spreadsheet, I used to work in election, and I know we had to budget for over 100 items. So the spreadsheet and 100 locations. So the spreadsheet used to look like something else. Imagine that is 190 sub spreadsheets, and a whole spreadsheet explaining what it is. I mean, it can be very complex. The reason I use that's for us to envisage what it means to look at the 39 countries when it comes to matters data protection. It's a stride in the right direction. You know what we are regulating and okay, now moving on quickly. That is Africa. So if we localize it, I'm happy with the support with development partners, World Bank, EU, through GIZ, the British High Commission. We are proud we've become trailblazers. Continued to guide in terms of protection. As a result, highlighting some of the including just last week, we released an additional 8 guidance on very pertinent issue. People have been asking, what do I do on by what do I do? What do I do when it comes to media? So we have published additional 8 guidance. Of importance also, we have a guidance note on something that has been spoken by speaker after speaker. Why do we have stored in silos, different stacks in government? How can we make sure this data is talking to each other? I want to assure you as an office, data protection authorities are not here to deter innovation. In fact, it's important to note that just recently we released the guidance note on data sharing because we understand that unless we share the data, then it's not being used in the way it's supposed to. That's another guidance notes. These are what we are commonly known for the enforcement. The person who does those things is rated right there. So Oscar, hebu simama usalimie wananchi. So I think I no longer me, I take the overall responsibility. The person doing the good work in terms of making sure they do investigation and hold us accountable. Oscar, the one making sure that you're doing your DPIAs and they are properly reviewed, is Walubengo. Previously, he was in industry. Now he comes as a deputy data commissioner. So this is what we've been doing as an office. We are happy. Also, as an office, we embrace our alternative dispute resolution because we understand that in terms of trade secrets, people don't want to go into court and have to haggle about explaining what they did or did not do. We understand that our biggest weakness many times our staff do not want to embrace what we do. So we have an alternative dispute resolution. It's been very effective and many people are using it more and more. And also because the beauty about when you work with us, in 90 days, you'll have your decision. Never mind, Oscar doesn't sleep. Quickly, but what are the challenges? Some, of course, and this cut across, I've already talked about the fragmentation of laws, and I may add the lack of a harmonized legal framework. Cross-border data flows is a challenge. We tend to hoard to our information we don't want to share. Interestingly, if you asked me when I came to office, my understanding, whether it's a good or bad thing, it will depend on who you're talking to in the industry. Many people want to insist on data sovereignty, yet on the other hand, we are talking about cloud computing. It doesn't make sense. When you speak to people, the best way to benefit actually even as you speak about data sovereignty, you're also making sure you're creating an environment that allows cloud computing and you're able to share technology across. So that's one of the other challenges, of course, limited in terms of awareness. Data protection authorities have limited resources, or at times I think we want to make sure they don't get resources so that they don't ask questions. And then, of course, evolving tech space. Ravin has just spoken about the challenge around cybersecurity and AI. Imagine us who have to quickly turn around and make sure you're on top of things when it comes to that sure that the environment is safe. Emerging tech becomes a challenge, but all these have a way of making sure you partner and you are addressing some of these concerns. The other issue, a big discussion here is matters of data flows. When it comes to cross-border data flows, The beauty about the Data Protection Act in Kenya, and this is something I get asked all the time, I think at times is lack of information. People ask, are we allowed? We understand there's data localization. You can't move your data from Kenya. It's important to clarify that under the Act, we have several conditions. One is appropriate safeguards. If the country you're transferring data to has appropriate safeguard, that is adequate. When it comes to issue around adequacy, Kenya is leading the pack in terms of adequacy conversation with the European Union. It will help open up businesses. Kenya transfers a matter of necessity and also consent. So these are all options when it comes to transfer of data from Kenya to other countries. So is this to assure you that Kenya is ideal for investment? We don't have limitations. We are cautious. However, it doesn't mean we don't do business. And then when I thought I would talk about this, because this is the other thing. We get many requests we get from the office about data sharing, especially around government agencies. This note we now, and the law allows for data sharing, and we now have a guidance note on data sharing. This is the key highlights. It is a guidance, and we actually released last year. Under that, we have actually explained that you are allowed to share. Can be for performance of a contract. It could be a legal obligation. It could be public interest. It could also be explicit consent. So what opportunities are there for us when we have a strong data protection framework? It facilitates, of course, economic growth, because then, and I like saying, if we don't look at the issue around data, because data protection falls within the category of data governance, can we trust ourselves? Can we trust human beings who are profit driven to actually then do the right thing? Can we? Can we trust? Huh? There'll be somebody with a shortcut. Isn't that what happened to a certain? Yes, anyway, not me shouting. You assume that it will be fine, and then somebody looks for a shortcut. Mary, how are you? You've been on that computer since you're So, I mean, you can't. That's why we try and bring in place framework governance. And once people trust you, they'll invest more in you. There'll be inclusion. We are going to actually reduce the cost of doing business. And of course, we develop robust framework. I think that brings an end. And of course, the forward for us is there. And because often people will ask, what do I do when it comes to data protection? I don't know where to start. We are actively exploring sandboxing. And it's something that we believe, if an incident you all know about that brought us to the highlight about irises, I don't need to go into details. If we had taken sandbox as an issue of addressing that concern, then we have an opportunity to explore whether the data is safe or unsafe. The other one is increased public awareness. I think as tech, as lawyers, we talk a lot. As tech, like to sit in a corner somewhere and speak. Yes, I think it's only connected where I find techies on the podium. I think they ask for permission to come here. They have, is it the holiday or the speaking? It's important to work with the people. And I think Ambassador Figo spoke about it. He said public participation, and it's an issue about accountability, has become very, very vital to our work. So it's important as you develop your product, test it, work with people. That is part of public awareness. I believe that if we have harmonized also frameworks across Africa, it's going to be easier for you. I say this because we are not pitching jointly as techie. You pitch to this government, you pitch to this government, you pitch to this government. But at a regional body level, there are only perhaps one company, which I know is very serious about, I'll not say their names, in the UN, in terms of pitching. There is value in numbers. You need to start pitching at regional level. These silos of I speak to Kenya, I speak to Tanzania, I speak to Uganda, and I am not speaking to them jointly. You're not getting a space to speak to them at ministerial forum when the East Africa community or SADC or ECOWAS, because you need to start selling the idea of the importance of one, public-private partnership, and also the importance of regional bodies working together. It's going to make your work easier. And then, of course, the need to strengthen data protection authority around Africa. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kassait, for that insightful presentation. So, do we have any questions for? Yes, Ms. Kassait. Sorry, you have to come back. There are questions for you. Yeah, someone isn't sure if they are handling their data correctly. Yeah.
Okay, I hope I don't have a case with you, but it's okay.
Commissioner, you don't have a case with me. I'm just impressed by the call out that you made that there's need to be a regional level conversation. But I also challenge you from a government perspective that you should show and demonstrate that by coming up with mechanisms that define data governance mechanisms at regional levels. Again, when we engage, you find that Kenya has a data protection law. I don't know that Tanzania has one. Uganda is building the same. But if you'd have this like what EU does, such that when there's compliance, then you know that if you're operating in East Africa, you're complying with East African law, not Kenya has law or a framework, Uganda has one, Kenya have one. So as a challengers, I throw it back to you. That I tend to think that it needs to start with you guys first.
Yeah, and that we are doing. I think, Mary, we have East Africa. You'll speak to that when you speak on the panel. There is already a team being led by East Africa Community, supported by the European Union on data governance. I challenge you because we speak to ourselves in those forums. We are still not pitching us, private and public sector. We must agree the competition. We are suppliers, we pitch items, but this is for a common good. It will work for us, like you're saying, in terms of East Africa. At East Africa level, there's an initiative, and also as the second vice chair of Network for African Data Protection Authority, there are initiatives to harmonize that. I just want to encourage us to pitch as business who are being affected when people say, set up a data center in Kenya, set up a data center in Rwanda, set up a data center in Uganda. Pitch when you come to those tables with concrete how it affects business, then the ministers will listen. I think we are talking to ourselves. We don't see you in those forums. Yes. Okay, please.
Thank you so much, Madam Kassait. Just two questions. One, in our landscape, there's a conversation. It's actually it's like a tug of war between IT and legal as to where data protection should sit. Yeah, you're laughing because you're aware of it. So you go into an organization, legal say, data protection, not for us. And then ICT are like, no, that's for legal. So in an organogram for a typical organization, I'll speak from the government perspective, but you can also speak even from the private sector. Where should the DPO sit? Is it a department? Is it what's the guidance for that? I understand that the DPO answers directly to the CEO, but where functionally do they sit? That's the first question. And question number two is a bit dicey. How do we balance the political demands as it is right now to regulate people, at the same time still want to maintain the integrity of personal data with people? Because that's it's a hot potato. We understand that's even conversations right now about a bill that's coming from the privacy professionals. We think that this is going to infringe, but also the governance aspect, which is a big percentage politically motivated to push for such bills. So how does your office come into... Where do you stand? Do you stand with the people or with the government?
Of course, I stand with the people. Would
On-
I be here? These are people.
on
Anyway.
paper.
No, I think I'll start with your last question. I think it's never gray. By the way, for me, it's black or white. If you truly stand with the principles of data protection, data minimization, it's very clear where you should be. How you respond to that question is the politics. You understand? It's never gray, it's black or white. It's how you respond to it. We are in a country where we love activism. We love it. So for you where you sit, as long as the data commissioner is not issuing press statements across, she's not working. Ask what happens behind the scenes in terms of influencing those decisions. And I find it from somebody who's come from activism to somebody who has gone 360 to government. It's a much more effective way of working in terms of making sure you're influencing and explaining to people and building capacity to understand how then can they still get the same result, but not infringing on people's rights. I say this data protection issue has gotten a life of their own. By the way, data commissioner doesn't have to say anything. Everybody is now very cautious about their data and they will guard it with all they have. But also, we must also remember the government has responsibility and a legal obligation to collect data and use it for legal purpose. So that is the balance. It is how you respond to it. And also for everyone to understand, because unfortunately also in this era of technology, we are also misusing data. So now we are getting to extremes, and it's not unique to Kenya. It's how then do we have this conversation to make sure everybody is doing their work. On your first question on organogram, it's very clear. If there was a breach or there was a cyber attack and you had an officer in tech, in the tech department, would they report? They will. When they are reporting their boss, what do you think will happen? The best advice, and maybe someday we'll give a guidance. The reason why there wasn't a guidance initially, it's because it was a new field growing. I think other countries have actually now started guiding in terms of where DPO sits. It's an audit function, 100%. It should fall under audit. It should have a direct report to the board and CEO. It should not be in any department. Because the violators are in those departments, they'll try and cover up and they'll not want to speak truth to power. So make sure they are away from that. If they're in legal, okay, I keep thinking Kenyan, they are suppressing them. I think just take them off so that they are independent. Completely from legal. Yeah. I think Walubengo you've had. Let's pick up the issue very serious because it keeps coming up. Okay. Any other question? Oscar has a question. No, he has had. Yeah. Okay. Any other question? Because we have to allow the panel. Yes, please. Yes. Are you a lawyer? Just a quick one.
So I'll touch on what he had mentioned on collaboration, because we consult a lot on integrated risk management solutions, because everyone is trying to see how do we help risk and audit in automation also. But the challenge that most of us face is all the solutions that we present are already compliant to GDPR. And then when we come to talk to the audit teams and the IT, they ask that they are also compliant with the Office of ODPC. So how can we have, or rather maybe for the future collaboration, is if someone already is GDPR compliant, so is there a systematic way where it can shorten that also certification with your office so that we don't have to get a legal team sitting somewhere in Europe, which will take another 1 year debate on should they also get the certification from Kenya? because it becomes really challenging to grow.
It's 5 years later. Why are we still having a conversation about GDPR? Do you want to speak to it, Milu?
No, because that's what we face.
That's what you face. What I would advise, let's deal with it on a case-to-case basis. Yeah, let's deal with it. Because normally when you come to us about compliance, we give you a roadmap. And it's rare that when we give you a roadmap, when you tell us where are you in terms of status, at the end of implementation of that, because we also understand in terms of resources, it's something that can be quite challenging to make sure you're on board. We are not deaf to needs of industry. That's why we try as much as possible to collaborate, partner, but we are listening to the needs of industry because we are conscious that it can be very costly at times to implement. But I would leave it at on a case by case basis. Okay. But also encourage your customers to I mean, it's 5 years.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Kassait. And sorry to everyone whose questions we couldn't get to.